Ministry of Education, Dr. Peter Smith, Chief Education Officer, Mr. Aaron Ramratan, Director of School Supervision, Dr. Yinka Nurse Carrington, Manager, Student Support Services Division. Good morning, and good morning to the members of the media present, all our followers of the live broadcast and live stream, and welcome to this morning's media conference. It's been a little while since we've met, and I want to open this morning with a warm welcome to all those following. This morning's press conference is hosted by the Ministry of Education, and its objective is to officially launch our EdU Talk series. It's a forum designed to apprise the national population on the plans, projects, and initiatives coming out of the Cabinet-approved education policy. The Ministry of Education would have engaged the national population in a series of in-depth consultations, and we are back to share with you the outputs of that process. I now hand over to the Honourable Minister to provide that update.
Thank you very much, Radha, and a very pleasant good morning to all. The Ministry of Education is pleased to invite the national public to participate in the EduTalk series, which takes place next week from Monday, 18 September to Friday, 22nd September 2023. This series of conversations with different education stakeholders, including principals, denominational boards, teachers, students, parents, and the wider national community, is intended to inform the public of the details of the Education Policy 2023 to 27. And these details and recommendations emanated from the education consultations of 2020 and 2021, the CARICOM Crime Symposium, and continuous feedback from our valued education stakeholders. The Education Policy 2023-27 is the overarching roadmap which will guide the operations of the MOE over the next 5 years, and is supported by a suite of new sub-policies such as the Cultural Transformation Policy, the Homeschooling Policy, the Patriotism Policy, the Policy for the Registration of Private Schools, the Digital Transformation Policy, and the Remedial Education Policy. And these are new sub-policies which are added to the existing policies, such as the Inclusive Education Policy. This national conversation on education takes place at a time where student performance in national and regional terminal examinations has rebounded to pre-COVID-19 levels, based on the diligent work of students, the MOE staff, administrators, teachers, parents, education stakeholders, as well as the implementation of strategies to mitigate learning loss. With regards to SEA, in 2019, 52% of students scored above 50% in the secondary entrance assessment, with 13.7% scoring under 30%. By 2022, when the worst effects of the COVID-19 experience were being observed globally, the percentage of students scoring over 50% in SEA slipped to 37%, with 28% scoring under 30%. In 2023, our SEA performance has rebounded, with 58% of students scoring over 50% and 13% scoring under 30%. With regards to CSEC, in 2019, the percentage of students attaining 5 subjects or more was 60%. Those who obtained 5 or more subjects with math and English was 53%. By 2022, the full brunt of the COVID-19 experience saw rates reduced to 53% with 5 or more subjects and 43% with at least 5 subjects, including math and English. In 2023, 58% of the students received passes in 5 or more subjects, with 51% getting 5 passes minimum, including math and English. With reference to the pass rates for math and English at the CSEC level, the pass rate in 2019 was 48% and 76% respectively. In 2022, these rates were 42% and 72%. And now in 2023, the pass rates for CSEC Math and English are at 50% and 78%. The education system is now poised for transformative action, which has already begun and will continue based on implementation of the initiatives outlined in the Education Policy 2023-27 and its accompanying sub-policies. The initiatives outlined in the Education Policy 2023-27 also dovetail with the recommendations of the SEA and Concordat Committee, which indicated that a drastic change in the format used to effect transition from primary to secondary school would likely result in negative unintended consequences without reform of the education system to increase the homogeneity of educational experiences across primary and secondary schools. The committee recommended changes to the education system to ensure that the quality of education could be achieved in any school in Trinidad and Tobago would be superior. This echoes the vision of the Education Policy 2023-27, which is modern, relevant, equitable education for all. The committee proposed a general enhancement program at the elementary level, which was proposed to reduce the levels of underachievement prior to students reaching the transition point to head into secondary school. And that would support the improvement strategies at the secondary school level. The Education Policy 2023-27 is in accord with the suggestions and presents multifaceted solutions across 8 strategic areas. It underscores the importance of legislative updates, which is the amendment of the Education Act, human resource development, equity in quality education, curriculum reform, revitalization of TVET, or technical and vocational education and training, harnessing ICT for digital transformation, transitioning learners through the education system, and enabling student success. The sub-policies which support the education policy address in more specific detail the recommendations of the SEA Concordat Committee. Critical to the success of the implementation of the tenets of the education policy, which would be evidenced by the gradual transformation of the education sector, is inclusive stakeholder engagements. EdU Talk, the series of education conversations which take place next week, is meant to engage our stakeholders on our strategic plan to transform education. On Monday, 18th September, we engage all principals at the Southern Academy of the Performing Arts on the following topics: education policy, cultural transformation policy, patriotism policy, digital transformation updates, re-engaging for success, integrated school monitoring policy, and restorative practice and student support services division functions. On Tuesday, 19th and Wednesday, 20th September, we engage in national community at Carripachaima West and El Dorado West secondary schools. On Thursday, we will have an open virtual session, and on Friday, 22nd September, we close with a student forum. Members of the public are asked and invited to follow the MOE on our social media platforms and contribute to the discussion as we collaboratively transform education in Trinidad and Tobago. One of the most impactful sub-policies which is currently being implemented is the cultural transformation through education policy. The main initiatives include the introduction of mandatory school activities, which is taking place in this academic year, curricular changes, timetable changes, changes in the student assessment framework, and changes in school operations. This must be accompanied by buy-in. Our principals have already been involved via 4 seminars which were held, and the effects of what we are doing now we expect to be seen over the course of 5 to 7 years. So we invite the national public to join with us as we enter this series of talks, EdU Talk, to discuss how we are going to work together to transform education in Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I now invite the members of the media present. Minister would have provided an overview of what is to happen over the next week. She would have provided an overview of what the intent, strategic intent of the education policy and the sub-policies. So I now invite you to pose questions related to the subject matter today to the Honourable Minister and the head table. The floor is now open. The officers in the room will guide.
Good morning, Minister Jesse Ramdew from CNC3 News. Thank you so much for that comprehensive report and update. As it pertains to the EdU Talk series, you mentioned transforming the education sector and the stipulated time period, 2023-2027. There continues to be a lot of conversation about the secondary entrance assessment examination. I know it's factored in the discussions here. Any further update as it pertains to discussions where the discussions probably are headed, what direction it's headed into in terms of a new system in place, replacing it, any sort of update on that end as it pertains to the exam?
We'll speak a little bit more about it, and when the report of the SEA Concordat Committee, which was put in place by the Prime Minister, is released, then you would see a bit more in terms of their level of consultation, who they spoke with, what they spoke about, and the outcome of the discussion. But in general, the outcome that they are recommending is that we may be better served by moving to a different system. However, at this time, we have bigger issues to deal with, which would be the equity of education. And that means that we have to deal with ensuring that no matter where a student goes to school, they can receive quality education, and that there are standards that would apply to what every student should be exposed to. Because what is expressed in the report is that even if we were to move to different systems that have been tried in different educational jurisdictions, there are inherent consequences that may be unintended, but that may serve to concentrate students even more than it is now in certain areas based on geography, based on the type of school they attend, and it will not give us the result we are looking for. So what they actually suggested is that we do exactly what this education policy speaks to, taking a deep dive into our education system and the quality of education that is offered. And in that way, when students are assured of a quality education wherever they are, it will remove this one competition and this need to get students into a particular school if they are to do well. That is at the basis of the queries that come with SEA, and so that is where we are focusing the attention first, dealing with what is offered across the board at all our schools. The report was commissioned by the Office of the Prime Minister, so I can't speak to that, but we do have the report itself and some of the main things that were suggested, and so that has been figured, and it actually dovetailed very well with what we're doing at the ministry based on our research and based on our comments from stakeholders and so on.
Good morning, Minister. Ryan Hamilton Davis, Trinidad Newsday. Is there any anticipated topics coming from the EdU Talk series that you may foresee some either parents or stakeholders coming forward with, and if there is any of those things, what do you do to anticipate those things, get information on it, etc.?
Well, I don't know that there's anything that could come up in the EdU Talk series that has not been very much ventilated on social media, ventilated in the mainstream media, and certainly by persons reaching out to me, parents, students, and so on these issues. The education sector has a lot of different things that combine and can make issues in our presentations. So we would have prepared, as you see, I'm seated here, Minister Maurice Julian, our Chief Education Officer, our Director of School Supervision, and our Director of Student Services. And the team together will be present at these series to further discuss anything that may come up and any issues that may be raised by the national public. We know there are many issues, and not all of them are negative. It is just a matter of us being able to address all that will come up, and we are prepared to do that. Sure. Yes.
Well, actually, I have a couple of off-topic ones, but
One.
We really go with well. First and foremost, there were a lot of issues, complaints about the high temperatures and how it's affecting students. And through some earlier stories, there was a more or less of a deliberation of what could actually be done, and there were some issues with grid. Power supply for air conditions, that kind of stuff like that. So I don't know if the ministry is looking into dealing with, high temperatures for schools, and if they are, what are they actually doing?
I had some questions coming to me on that basis, and it made me wonder if persons are underestimating the operational supervision of the principals and the teachers at schools, who have been dealing with high temperatures in school since I certainly was a child. And, they would carry us out in the yard if it was amenable. They would request of parents to put up and buy fans. In some cases, the school would put up and get fans in certain areas, air conditioned certain areas. This has happened, all through the time. We've been a tropical country, and it's been hot. And I think all of us may have experienced this kind of temperature, not just in this classroom, in the churches and so on. And we would have seen over time the advancements made to manage these things. And I don't think that our principals and our teachers are not managing the situation along with our parents. And the ministry also steps in at times to do different infrastructural things at school. So that is not something that's new. It's something that we are accustomed to managing, and we continue to manage.
Well, I know you said that, it has been an issue from before, but we are actually experiencing record high heat. It's going on an average of record high heat. We had 3 record-breaking temperatures over the last week. We're averaging at the 34 degrees, and that can't be good for students who are already usually very high-strung, very energetic, and may sweat and be a little bit more dealing with a little bit more with the heat more. So I don't know if you think it's time.
I'm saying to you that schools are accustomed dealing with heat. Principals and teachers are accustomed putting things in place. They may take students outside if it's too hot in a classroom. It may be a record for today, but along our history of having schools, there have been record days of heat.